Y'all, UFOs are a staple of the channel. We absolutely love them and we check out sightings whenever we can. And since my previous Reddit video went over so well, I figure why not combine the two so we can check out some of the strangest true UFO Reddit stories. Now I was gonna scour through all of Reddit to find the best UFO stories for you, but luckily the Travel Channel already did our job for us. Shout out to Beth Braden. So let's start with The Encounter Abroad. This is a family story I've heard only twice. I can't remember how it was brought up the first time, but the explanation was very vague. So I asked again a few months later, when the family had come together at the cottage during the summer. Damn sis, you got a cottage? They seemed kind of off, iffy talking about it, but provided more details. They live in Ukraine, but took a trip to Turkey sometime in the 90s. They had rented a little cottage there that was far enough into the countryside to be considered fairly remote. Long story short, one evening the dogs outside started going absolutely crazy. Now we've talked about this a few times in other videos. Usually animals can sense when there's a UFO or really anything paranormal near, and they start acting strange and sometimes going a little ballistic. They were barking viciously and just overall behaving erratically. One of them, my grandma's brother, I believe, went outside to... Wait, what? Maybe it's the way that it was written? Is your grandma a sibling to one of the dogs? Because that transition there made no sense. One of them, my grandma's brother, I believe, went outside to check what was going on and saw what they can only describe as a UFO nearing their cottage. Pretty high up in the sky, but it was actually lowering a bit as if to come closer. He called for the rest of the family to come and see. I know it must have been in the way of writing or a typo, but the way that it is written, it seems like the dog is the sibling. So I'm just like picturing or hearing Scooby-Doo's like voice, like, "Ruh-roh, look at the UFO!" Like, it just sounds crazy. Sorry, that's just my mind. And to this day, they can still confirm what they saw. Well, the ones that are still alive at least. They said it was a triangle shaped and had 3 lights, one on each corner. When it got seriously close to the house, they really began to panic and ran back inside. The very walls were shaking. Dishes were breaking from the force of the vibrations going throughout the walls and floor. And the dogs outside were barking louder than ever. I find this part of the story very interesting. This happened in the 90s, so obviously there was no drones, and we don't have giant triangular drones that can vibrate a whole house. But I do think it's interesting how they're talking about the vibrations of the house, because we've often talked about frequencies and vibrations and how these things enter our atmosphere and leave. And some do believe that it's a higher frequency, higher vibration that allows them to even travel faster than light or apparate or disapparate. So I think it's very interesting that they included those details about the entire house vibrating, the walls, the floors, dishes breaking. That's insane. It hovered over the cottage for several minutes before ascending back up and disappearing. These are all people who are very conservative and rational, and they hate discussions regarding the supernatural. So I have no doubt in my mind that they were telling the truth. And this comes from Judith Grimes. Whoa, that's awesome. That is an incredible story. And I love more that it's not just like, oh, I saw this UFO, but these are older people who are more conservative, an entire group, like a whole family who seemingly, according to the story, they don't talk about supernatural stuff. They don't give a crap about any of this. They're just talking about what they saw. And it's a story that they passed down through generations in their family, which to me makes it more believable. That's absolutely insane. And again, I love the little tidbit about the vibrating walls. Now, before we jump into the next story, let me know in the comments what you took away from this one. Our next story is when the aliens crashed the Sleepover, which is crazy because like all I did was play video games and eat pizza in my sleepovers, and I could have had an alien over. Let's jump in. When I was about 12, my best friend and I used to sleep out on my friend's trampoline in his yard in the summer. Okay. We would gather our bed stuff and bounce around until we got tired, then eventually lay down and go to sleep. No one else thinks that's weird? Well, one evening, four of us were laying on the trampoline talking when we noticed that there's something floating over the woods nearby. You couldn't see it directly, just that it blocked the stars out as it slowly moved. It was just a little higher than the tree tips tops. Oh, tree tips tops. And completely silent. We were just some dumb kids, so we just watched it. Slowly, it drifted until it was directly over top of us. Then suddenly, there was this light that I cannot describe. It was more than blindingly bright. It was disorientingly, cripplingly bright, like it shone down into you. The next thing I remember, we were all standing inside my friend's house, looking out his sliding glass back door at the object still hovering there. And then it glided away immediately. We were all spooked, but we decided to go back out and go to the bed on the trampoline. Are you crazy? You just possibly got abducted and experienced missing time because one moment you were outside and then you were inside, and then you see this massive craft zip off. You don't know how many more crafts are out there. You don't know how many more aliens want to abduct little kids, and your ass went back outside to the trampoline. You deserve to be abducted by aliens, my friend. I'm sorry. We're laying there for a while, and the next thing we know, it comes back again and does the same thing. Again, we find ourselves inside, looking out the back door. Yeah. What did you think was gonna happen? Why would... What? You're lucky if y'all don't have some type of radiation poisoning or something. What? Beyond all reason. Oh God, don't tell me. Oh God. Beyond all reason, we go back outside to bed again. I mean, it's already, I'm already still like, you're going to bed outside on a trampoline. I don't even know how to, I don't know where to begin with that. But then this thing happens to you twice, and then you're gonna go back outside. Bro, I can't. So they go back outside, they're in bed again, and guess what happens? The same shit again. What? Huh? Yeah, that's, hello? So we finally decide to sleep inside with the lights on. My friends and I lost touch as we grew up. But when I was 18, I heard one of them was in town. I ran into him at a party one night and pulled him to the side to ask him about the night, as it had bothered me for some time. His response has shaken me to this day. I cannot describe his reaction sufficiently. He looked at the ground and said, "I don't want to talk about it." I was kind of shocked by this response, so I didn't know what to say. He got up and walked out, and I stayed sitting there thinking about what just happened. I got up after a minute to go see if I could find him, but he'd left immediately after. That was it. I haven't seen him or the others, but his response was enough to let me know something strange definitely went down that night. I don't know if I want to remember. This comes from Insomnia Acrobat. Wow. I'm not gonna lie, when I got to the part where the friend looks down and he's like, "I don't want to talk about it," that kind of gave me chills. I would probably be a little freaked out by that, just because that's such a big thing. And if he's remembering correctly and they were just like warped inside, like, why would you not want to talk about that? Unless his friend remembers something else and actually remembers what happens. And oh, I hate to throw this out there, but it is human psychology, and it's how we work. And I know that we love UFOs, and so we want this to be as true and accurate as possible. But there are also sometimes where children experience traumatic events. And in order to protect them, their brain creates a different reality for that moment, different memories, or blanks it out completely. Or for some people, it even splits their personality. And it's quite possible that in this situation, I hope it's not, I hope it was just the UFOs, right? But it's quite possible that these children went through a traumatic experience several times that night. I mean, they were sleeping outside near the woods on a trampoline. Hello, right? It's quite possible they went through something super traumatic, and in order to protect this person, their brain was like this UFO experience. And the other kid either actually remembers what's going on or pieces of it. So when he asked about it, homeboy's like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, it triggered something in him, which is why he then left the party abruptly. It could also be that the guy's just freaked out by UFOs, because honestly, that's just a weird situation in general, but that I don't want to talk about it and then leaving abruptly, it just makes me feel very uncomfortable in this story. Now, smash like, because next we have the low-flying triangle. About 2 years ago, I was in Naples, Florida with my friend. We were on a porch having a smoke around 11 p.m. I was leaning on the railing when what I thought was a plane in the distance turned toward us. It was flying so low that the front lights blinded us. My friend scrambled for his phone, which turned out to be dead, and I, fearing I would miss it, didn't want to run inside to grab my phone. Though the craft was steadily gliding, it was all happening so fast. As the object got closer, we noticed it was a huge black triangle with 3 huge circular lights on the bottom. It was so close, just above the trees right in front of the building. It was so silent, the only thing making any sound was the trees rustling below the craft. Then, the huge black triangle effing turned on a dime right in front of us and disappeared over the tops of the building. I wouldn't have believed what I saw if I didn't see it with someone else. User number 800. Wow. That story was short but sweet and impactful, simply because I could feel the skepticism in his story, especially at the end where he's like, he didn't say I wouldn't believe it if someone told me. He said he wouldn't believe what he himself saw with his own eyes if someone else wasn't there seeing it with him. Meaning he wouldn't even have trusted his own eyes. That's how crazy this thing was. And quite honestly, I love a sighting from a skeptic because they don't want to believe. And so they're genuinely just all around confused and concerned, and you can feel that either when they're talking or when they're writing. You can feel their lack of understanding and their wanting to know. It's like they turned over to our side and they're like, okay, no, these people are right, what was that? And I'm glad he got to have that experience with someone else instead of thinking that he was going crazy for his whole life, because some people do. Next, we have a UFO sighting that was not meant to be heard by anyone. This one is called Don't Tell Anyone. This is a story of my father's. It happened in 1982 while my father was stationed on a military base in New Brunswick. One night, my father's best friend and his girlfriend left just after dark to go see Tron at the movie theater. About an hour later, the friend and his girlfriend were back on the base. The car pulled in, and my father immediately noticed that it was damaged pretty badly and covered in several different colored paints. My father asked them what happened, why they had not gone to the movie. They brushed him off and went to bed. A few days later, my father got his friend to tell him what had happened. They were driving along a stretch of highway when they noticed lights coming over a hill just ahead, where no lights should be because there was nothing around for miles. Just at the base of that hill was a parking lot for a park. A bunch of cars were pulling into the parking lot to investigate the lights, so my father's friend pulled in too. Everyone got out of their cars and was about to start hiking to the top of the hill when a large disc with flashing lights rose above the hill's peak and emitted a loud, strange sound. Several cars got banged up in everyone's panic to get away, thus the transfer of paint. My father's friends drove back to the base as fast as possible. A few days later, men in black suits showed up on the base looking for people. They talked to my father's friend and then sent him on his way. My father asked him what the men wanted to see him for. The men told the friend that he better shut up, say nothing about anything that happened if he wanted to keep his military career. That story came from KKM 1992. And that, it's actually a pretty scary story, not because of the UFO UAP, more because of the Men in Black. Something that we don't hear very often, like we don't hear this in every UFO story, but they do come up in a lot of the major ones where people have had close contact, and they're usually telling the people to shut up and threatening them, which I find very disconcerting. I don't understand why, like, okay, if I see this flying saucer, I don't know what it is, and I can go tell everyone that I saw a flying saucer, and half the people won't believe me. And the people that do believe me also won't know what it is, and we wouldn't be able to do anything about it. So I don't understand why, for some of these cases, the Men in Black pull up and get so defensive about it. Like, I mean, I guess this guy was in the military, so he had a little more pull. If a military personnel says something, you're more likely to believe it. But even still, we have whistleblowers now that half the world doesn't give a crap about. So I don't see why it would be such a problem that the Men in Black have to come up. And it makes me believe that for this particular case, that UFO that they saw was not an extraterrestrial or out of planet or interdimensional craft. It was one of our crafts that we were reverse engineering, and they didn't want anyone to find out that we were reverse engineering these UFOs. I think that's what's actually happening here, is that if you see a UFO, like, no one cares. No one comes up. I've seen UFOs. Some of you have seen UFOs. No one's come up to me. The Men in Black haven't come up to me. But when you see maybe some of our technology that was based off the UFO stuff but looks different, like with how this had the lights and can give descriptors that might give us away to our enemies, or might be able to be confirmed by someone on the inside, they're like, no, 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 skirt. Otherwise, I can't really see a rhyme or reason behind it. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I might be wrong. Maybe they do need to do it for even the extraterrestrial crafts, but I just don't. I feel like anyone who's watching this channel would have been approached at least once by the Men in Black if that were the case. Now, sometimes these visitors come to the Earth and they will take someone, and that person will experience missing time. Sometimes you see them coming out of volcanoes and we have no idea what they're doing. But sometimes aliens come to Earth, and just like us when we go to places, they're just tourists. So our next story is about the aliens that came to see the comet. Back in spring of 1997, a group of kids from my neighborhood were looking up at the night sky observing the Hale-Bopp comet. After a while, we started noticing a red and white dot circling around each other, making sudden movements in every direction like no aircraft I have ever seen or have ever seen since. At one point, they merged into one craft, then shot out 3 smaller crafts, although we couldn't tell whether it was a craft because they just appeared to be balls of light. This went on for a couple of hours. Right before the lights disappeared, they accelerated at lightning fast speeds into the darkness. We all went home terrified of what we saw. The next day, on the front page of our small hometown paper, it said it received several calls. The explanation they gave was that the local airport was testing aircraft. To this day, however, whenever I see my friends that were there that night, we'll sometimes talk about it. None of us can be sure what we saw, but to this day, none of us have ever seen anything like it again. Now, that is an interesting UFO story, specifically because this happened in 1997, and they're talking about things that we're still witnessing today. We've seen orbs of light zipping around in the sky anomalously and erratically. We've seen them merge into one object before. Those are some of the most anomalous sightings we've had on the channel or in general in the world. And then we've seen these orbs of light also shoot out other orbs of light that sometimes we think are weapons, or sometimes we think are other crafts or UFO drones. We've had this conversation several times. So the fact that this was happening in 1997, before the advent of drones and everything we have now, like that, you can't explain this away with a drone. They didn't exist. So what are these orbs of lights that were able to merge together? And I don't believe that the local airport was testing airplanes. We don't have airplanes that can merge together, and then once they're merged together, shoot out 3 different airplanes, all while looking like orbs of light. Sorry, buddy, we just don't have that. So what was going on there, and what's going on now? And y'all, that story comes from yoga_butt, and I'm assuming it's because they got a super nice butt, because they always do yoga. Now, if you're enjoying this, smash like, because next we have the rural visitor. As a kid back in the 80s, I was spending the night at my aunt and uncle's house, which was out in the sticks in Tennessee. I was sleeping on the couch and woke up due to a bright light coming through the kitchen window and into the living room. I was looking towards the light, which was white and slightly flickering. After about 10 minutes, I turned my head, as it was now keeping me awake. After a few minutes, I turned my head back towards the light and was about to go to sleep on the love seat. I see a tall, dark figure standing between myself and the light. I was frozen, and I could not move or scream. It approached me, reached out, and began tapping on my forehead with what felt like a nail or something pointed. This went on another few minutes until I must have fallen asleep or was put to sleep. I woke up the next morning to a quiet house. I go into the bathroom and I have a red spot on my forehead, and the skin was slightly broken, but no blood. Seeker 469. Wow, that's really creepy. I'm not gonna lie. As I'm reading this story, the first thought that came to my head was not UFOs. The first thought that came to my head was actually sleep paralysis, and that seeing what some people call the sleep paralysis demon. Some people see a ton of different creatures or different things, and then you fall asleep. Like, that's why, oh, then he fell asleep. He was just in sleep paralysis after seeing the light. The light probably confused his brain as he was trying to drift off into the dream world, and his brain kind of created this dream within reality as he was in the crevice of the waking world and the sleeping world. That is until we got to the end, and he said that his skin was almost broken, but there was no blood, and it was red. Meaning there was a physical touch on his forehead. Something was tapping or stabbing at him on his forehead. Meaning whatever entity he saw might have actually been there. And that's a freaking scary thought. I've said before how I'm not necessarily afraid of UFOs in particular. I wouldn't like if an alien just showed up at my house. Like, hell no, I have a right to bear arms and I don't want to shoot UFOs or shoot aliens. But if some creature comes into my house without permission, that's trespassing, and I'm going to shoot you. My safety comes first before your exploration or adventure. Sorry, aliens. I don't care. Either way, I would not be going back to that aunt and uncle's house unless I'm armed or they're armed, and I have someone with me, preferably someone my age, there with me to experience this with me and or help me if anything goes left. Next, we have an interesting story called the No-Fly Zone. I haven't had any encounters with aliens, but my mom has. On September 11th, 2001, yes, I'm serious, on September 11th, my mom went on a walk on the waterway after watching the news for hours. This was in the evening time, So the no commercial flight sanction was already in place. Yeah, that day was crazy. While on her walk, she looked up after feeling like someone or something was watching her, and she saw a triangular aircraft floating above her. At first, she thought it might have been a military craft of some sort, but then realized it was making absolutely no noise. She said it was so low to the ground that she probably could have touched it if she wanted to, but before she could reach out and touch it, the craft zipped away quickly with no sound at all. And that comes from watermelon pizza fries, a combination of foods I never want together. And I find that sighting to be very interesting because it happened on September 11th. So there was a very strict no commercial flights protocol that we had going on. It was sanctioned for everywhere. We couldn't get up in the skies, respectfully and rightfully so. So the fact that this was just hovering there, and the fact that it was so close that she could reach out and touch it, is even creepier, although I wouldn't have, as the CIA has actually admitted and put out documents that if we get too close to the crafts, we can get radiation poisoning, we can get hurt, and some women may experience unwanted pregnancies, which is probably the craziest thing I've ever read from the government, that UFOs can cause unwanted pregnancies, and none of us talk about that enough. Just saying. And that was a lady, so I feel bad for her. I hope that this child, because it's like my mom, maybe they're an alien. No. Or an alien baby. Oh god. Okay. But I find it fascinating that it was so close that she could touch it. I wouldn't want that, but it's so weird and so cool. They said that when it zipped away, there was no sound at all. What I want to know is, since this thing was so close, when it zipped away, did the mom feel the air? Was there any noticeable change in the atmosphere, in the environment? Did the leaves on the floor rustle? When it left, when it zipped away, did the force of it push her back? Or did she not hear anything or even feel anything? There was just no change, like the space in the area was frozen. I want those levels of detail. But I do love the story. Y'all, some of these UFO stories are absolutely insane. And guess what? There are a ton more. So if you enjoyed this type of video, let me know in the comments. Smash that like so that we can make more videos like this. Because I said, there's a ton of UFO stories, a ton of scary stories, a ton of stories all over the world. Now, while you wait for the next video, make sure you check out those UFO videos, those paranormal videos right there, those reaction and funny videos. Check out all the videos.